Welcome to Under Construction from Chadwicks, where it's all pure site talk. We like to dig into the big issues that affect tradespeople both on and off site, and of course have a bit of crack along the way. And today we are joined by Niall Breslin. Bressie, to most of us, is a musician, a former rugby player, a best-selling author, a podcaster. He's also a strong voice on mental health in Ireland. And we are going to be chatting about the heart, the head, and why DIY sometimes is the best type of therapy. Let's get it done. Bressie, great to see you, fella. It's been a while.
It is quite nice to see you. It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
Yeah, so just to give a bit of context, for us to end up in this spot, we did kind of come together at the very start of our careers, under 20s, where you were an incredible rugby player, man.
Yes, I wasn't. I do remember you and Paul were the kind of the big brothers of the room, and I remember coming. I did play against you with Cork Con a few times, and we'd go down to Cork and get our arses handed to us. But I remember going down there and just getting your brother as well, absolutely battered. But yeah, I like them were the days. I think that was we were the first youth group kind of coming out of academies, and the professional era had been around a few years. But yeah, it's funny it was 20s at the time, and it was you and Paulie were second rows. We had some team at that time.
Unbelievable. You were playing six an awful lot, and to be fair to Bressie, maybe it's coming from where you were coming from as well. You were dog man, which was important in a back row.
I was a Gaelic player. I wasn't a rugby player. I actually
There's
had
the dog.
No rugby in me at all. I was pure Gael player. I played Gaelic. I played rugby for Mullingar, but Gaelic took over for me in my teenage years, and I just loved it. I loved Gaelic football. And the thing about it is, I used to always say to people playing rugby, if you have a chance, play Gaelic football. It's when you look at the really great ballers Ireland had, a lot of them were footballers. Tommy was a footballer. You can see it in his hand. Shane Horgan, footballer. You can see it.
That amazing
they were comfortable
try
with the ball in their hands. You know what I mean? So I used to love Gaelic, and then I suppose you start getting into the representative teams, and I was a big lad, and it just made sense, and I was an angry lad, so it kind of just made more sense. But it took a while to kind of tame that anger down a little bit. Yeah.
We'll get into all of it, because you've had an incredible career up to this point. It is actually, honestly, not just saying it, man, so proud of the different areas you've gone into, and not only dipped your toe in it, Bressie, but excelled. You know what I mean? You must be very proud. When you look at that start node, an awful lot of people could think, oh, you left the rugby stuff behind you, and that can become nearly the story, whereas you used it to nearly fuel you.
I think, though, what rugby or whatever any professional sport does at that level, it gives you discipline.
Yeah, okay.
It's the biggest gift it gives you. And discipline, I think discipline is really, really important. It's a really important value I have. What I mean by that is you're taking something on, you got to commit to it. You can't kind of just sidestep it. You got to go for it. So you got to make sure you want to go for it. And the thing is, the other aspect, that doesn't mean you rinse yourself all the time and you work all the time. I always say this, sometimes discipline is learning how to sit in your arse and do nothing and relax and rest. And so it's all of that stuff. But I think the other thing, when I gave up rugby, I had that discipline. My dad was ex-army. He wasn't strict, but he was always like, don't waste your time doing something. He says, you can do whatever you want. Like, if you want to be a musician, go for it. Like, you're not joining the army. You definitely don't suit the army. I was told that early in my life. But yeah, go for it. And it is. I think I don't put other people in boxes. I don't like saying this is what you are, so this is what you got to be. Same with you. You came out of rugby and you made a complete career from and we could have easily boxed each other off and said, this is what he does. He's going to go into coaching, or he might, he go into fitness or something, but you didn't. And that's the difference.
I think that is brilliant parent advice, though, isn't it, from your dad there? Like, trying to get that across to someone, you know what I mean, from such a trusted source, that you can do everything. You know what I mean?
No, he didn't say that about music, to be fair to him. He was like, music? Are you sure? 'Cause my brother's a musician, and he had gone through that whole thing. He'd been signed, and he was over in America making records. And he realized that music is a music industry. You think rugby is a tough industry. The music industry is brutal, and it's changed so much. So he kind of knew it. He wasn't doing it because my mum's a musician, so my mum's a music teacher.
Yeah.
So he wasn't saying music's a waste of time. He knew how difficult it was when I was going into it. But no, he was like, go for it. If you're going to do it, give it a shot. Don't go in it and kind of give out a year later when it didn't work out for you.
Yeah.
It's going to take time.
you probably get asked it a lot, but Mullingar, like, there's something in the water. You know what I mean? Joe, Niall, just what's come from there. Do you think that has forged a path for you in ways that people regard it as an area that develops?
It's funny.
Talent.
Like, I think Mullingar is something. Like when we were growing up there, like when you were growing up, Cork was the centre of the world. That's all you knew, and that's everything, good, bad, or ugly, that I've developed as a personality. It's come from that town. Okay, everything. What was good about a town like that and regional towns is you get the best of both worlds. You get the kind of country, the wildness of the country. You get that kind of. You get the country lads coming into school. Then you get the lads from the town, and you have that almost nice mix where you come up to Dublin. It's pretty much Dublin, but I think the other thing is. Like Joe Dolan, like Michael O'Leary as well. People forget that Michael O'Leary is I used to caddy for Joe. Like, Joe was brilliant.
Can he sing?
Joe can sing. I swear.
No, I'm on about Michael O'Leary.
I'd say O'Leary, give it a shot if it was being paid for it.
True.
But the thing about
probably charge you for it on the flight.
Of course he would. He would love. I met him in the O'Brien's the other morning, and he came in, and I've met him a few times, and I was like, "Hi, Michael." He did like, and he's not a rude guy. He's actually a really friendly, and he is what he is. He's exactly what he is. But he just didn't even see me. He was like, okay, geez. And it was one of those.
It's hardly like he could miss you, Bressie.
Where other people saw it. Like, oh, shit,
brilliant. They're all coming up tapping you everywhere.
Absolutely ghosted in the room in centre. But yeah, no, I think it is it's a brilliant town. I think the other aspect of it is it's a brilliant sporting town, but music was the big thing. Music and arts and culture. And around it, and there's brilliant people from that area. The other thing is like someone like Niall Horan. I remember in school, like I went to the same school as Niall Horan, and those two teachers that just like liked to let me know that music was a waste of time, because I'd come into school with like a guitar on my shoulder. I'd play in school. I was always about it. I played piano. I was in the choirs. I love music and sport. But I don't know what it was. One of them was a Christian brother, and I remember, I'm wondering, did they say the same thing to Niall Horan?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're going nowhere with
Irish
that.
Times rich list. I'm like, yeah, but see, that's the thing. You can't tell young people. The one thing I learned with that, where you can't dictate the course of young people's life. You got to let them go for it. Like when I was growing up, it was a banker, you're going to be a priest. I told my granny I'm going to be a priest every time I saw her, and she gave me a $5. Brilliant. She's going to come back and haunt me. Yeah. Like she's genuinely. We'd pass Maynooth when we were dropping her back to the airport, like, I'm going to be a priest.
There you go, gives a touch.
I swear to God, I got 300 quid out saying I was going to be a priest. But I didn't become a priest.
Mad.
Yeah.
But you mentioned those people, Niall, Joe, Michael O'Leary. We were lucky with an Irish camp at one time. Mick Carney organised for certain individuals to come in and chat with us. And Michael O'Leary came in one time, and I won't forget it, because he changed the shift in the room. It was like, why aren't you pushing on? Like, you're thereabouts, Triple Crowns, but like, stick your chin out, fucking think bigger. And I wonder, is that something in the mentality from where you're from? You know what I mean? To aim big, go big.
I think that mentality is an Irish mentality. Like, I always look at this, and I know it's probably going back too far, but that kind of post-colonial, like, aren't we doing great for ourselves? Rather than going, actually, why don't we set the pace here? Like, why don't we go for it? And Michael would have probably had that mentality when he turned an airline into the biggest airline in Europe and one of the biggest in the world. And, that's his mentality. And the thing about it is, I mean, we were watching the Irish team. Even back when I was involved at Leinster had an unbelievable team. Yeah. They weren't winning though. And I don't think they could believe they could win. And there was an element of that in it. So I think that element and that mindset is absolutely crucial. And I look at Michael, whether it's a Mullingar thing, I don't think it is. I do think there's, like, I never underestimate people. I just don't. I think if you've convinced yourself you're not going to do it, it's done. Like, it's absolutely done. But he is, and some people like him, some don't like him. Whatever your opinion on his personality, you got to respect what that guy's done. Like, incredible. That is pretty immense for a lad from Mullingar. Like,
incredible, really is. Yeah, I'm so proud, to be fair. Let's go back to the sports side of it. What drew you, Bressie? How did you get into rugby? You mentioned you were playing football. Music was obviously a massive passion. Like, there isn't many coming from Mullingar. Well, there is now, thankfully, but you kind of forged a path in that early stage.
No, to be fair, Mullingar Rugby Club was a huge part of my youth. My dad played there. It's an incredible. You want to see it now. Like, they have hundreds of children out every morning or every weekend, And actually, O'Leary is a big supporter of it because he's like, right, if you're going to do this, if you do this right, I'll support it. It's kind of the mentality. And
Mullingar, they have to check in an hour before.
Yeah, well, you can't arrive in a pair of Bermuda shorts. So you got to tank yourself out and play your game. And he's like, I'll support it if you take it seriously. And it looks unbelievable what they've done out there. When I was growing up, there was a very social club. A lot of my parents used to go there. My mum used to make the stew on a Sunday. All that kind of stuff. That was my upbringing. But football got me. I think football, do you know why football got me? It was so simple.
Yeah.
I played professional rugby for 3 years. I'm being honest with you, I didn't know the rules. I didn't.
The whole place doesn't know the rules. Not even the ref knows them.
They changed them. I'm like, stop changing the rules. And as a 6, like, you're always trying to break the rule. So I didn't even know what the rule was I was trying to break. I love the simplicity of Gaelic football. I love the beauty of it. So I was a midfielder. And I remember my coaches used to say, it's just like I played people like Bernard Flynn and some of these great footballers. And he said, all you got to do is like, and they used to launch the ball into the air. And I remember that was my favorite thing in the world to do. And that's where even from the second row and the lineouts. But then when I gave up rugby, a lot of people don't know, I was brought into the Westmeath squad. And that was the year we won Leinster. And we don't win lots of Leinsters.
Wow.
And Paddy O'Shea was the coach.
Amazing.
And I came in and I knew my body wasn't right. But I thought because I was a professional athlete, I'll be able to keep up with these guys at kind of gear 3, maybe gear 4.
No chance.
No. And my hamstring went first session. And I remember Paddy looking at me almost like a hamstring doesn't exist. And I could see what he was trying to say. I was like, Paddy, I've gone through 2 years of hell here.
Yeah.
I can't pretend anymore. My body's gone. And I tried. I went back out to training. And then that was the year they won Leinster. And it was the best year Westmeath ever had. So, and Paddy, same thing you talk about O'Leary, has a persona, Paddy. Like, there's a reason we talk about this guy. He is unbelievable. But my childhood sporting foundations, I became an athlete playing Gaelic football.
Yeah.
Because I was not an athlete at 13, 14-year-old. I wasn't fast, I wasn't fit. And then I got fit and I started joining like the Westmeath Minors and stuff like that. And then what happened with rugby was I was playing for Mullingar, I was playing well, and then ended up captaining the under-18s, Leinster under-18s, which is like, you know, the youth clubs.
Yeah.
And had a belter of a season with it because I was so fit from Gaelic football. And the whole thing started for me when we went up to do I think it was an Ireland under-19s trial. And it came up and all the lads were big, bolshy rugby players. And I could run like you wouldn't believe. Like I couldn't get tired. I was that fit from Gaelic football.
Like a Springer's
And it was
manual.
the 3K fitness test.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was home in Mullingar by the time the lads were still trying to finish it. I
sprinted
3K. I did it in like, I think you had to do it in 16 minutes. I did it in about, I think at about 11 and a half minutes or something like that. So I absolutely tore it. So they were like, this guy's really, really fit. And like, they didn't know whether I could play rugby or not at that point. And then I just had a good season. And then that moved me into the kind of setups, scholarships, Leinster. Leinster came after Irish 21s. But yeah, that was it. It was fitness more than anything in Gaelic football.
It was a big change in terms of professionalism was coming in. We were all going into academies and different sides, and we were all learning it. But one of the big emphasis was to get bigger. Like you mentioned being fitter, you know what I mean? But they wanted us stronger. They wanted us carrying good body weight.
You were that size since you were 12, though.
Yeah, I was.
Like, you were that. I was like, how? You came out. You were like a Mary. You're just boom. I was like, look at the size of this guy.
Yeah. There's a photo. I have a photo at home where I'm in second year and I'm taller than the lads on the third row, but I'm standing at the bottom. And they're like, look at that massive child.
I remember looking at you going, how am I meant to run into that lad? Like, it's ridiculous.
But then I suppose I was lucky in that. Now, you mentioned Paul O'Connell, but I've seen fellas that had to work their tail off to put on good weight. And it became a bit of an obsession in the game, didn't it? Whereas now I think we're back looking at pick the talent, you look at South Africa picking wingers for speed. I think we're getting there a little bit more.
The skill as well. It's still, at the end of the day, this is a skill sport. Like, it's a very skillful sport. Like the top footballers I watch that I love watching play, like Caelan Doris is a skillful player. Like he knows what to do, where to go. He's also a brilliant reader of the game. So size became this thing. I remember like when I came into Leinster, I was 6'6". I was definitely needed to put on weight. I knew I had to put on weight because I was looking like Victor Costello, Trevor Brennan, massive men.
Yeah, they're huge men.
I was like, I can't pretend I can take on these guys. I'll be absolutely alive. And my coach, and I won't say who it was, told me to eat a sliced pan a day.
Great advice.
I listened to advice. So I sat with a sliced pan. Have you ever tried to eat a full sliced pan? It sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
But the only way I could get through it was like I used to make toast, but I put 3 toasts together and I put like something in it, and I'd be so depressed
like a
eating
TikTok
toast.
challenge, man.
It was. And right enough, I put on a lot of weight, but I got slower.
Yeah.
I got, and then they went, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to do body fat analysis. It's like, oh no, you didn't tell me this. So should have given. And then I started eating. My friend at home at the time was a farmer, and he used to give these, like, he'd give you the steak in a fillet like that.
Oh wow,
vacuum packed.
Jeez,
and then I started selling it to the Leinster lads from him. I was getting them, so I turned into this entrepreneur myself. Philippe Contepomi bought 2 of them a week off me. And I was going down to man, and I felt like a drug dealer. I was like, I need more. Yeah. I need more steak.
Hook me up.
I was coming up to Dublin.
Have you sirloins?
It's just
what can you do off a bone?
Dumping it. So Leinster became less about playing rugby and more about selling steak for me by the end of it. Yeah.
You mentioned the discipline side of it, and that would have been big around the family. Anyway, what else do you think you've brought to your music, your studies from rugby? Is there anything else you thought, bar discipline, that it gave you a bit of an advantage with, or is there stuff that you saw there going, never again, you know what I mean, or I won't do that, or I won't treat people like that, or
standards are very high.
Yeah,
like standards, you're expected. You as a team, you will set standards and values at the start of the season, like, and you got to maintain them. Like, so you can't just go, I don't want to do that today. So I think for music, bringing a band together and saying to the guys, like, this is really hard. Like, we got to give this a shot. You know what? When I look back at it, I was way too intense with that. And I was too control freaky with it as well.
With the blizzards.
Yeah, with everything. I know now that I probably was sucking a bit of the enjoyment out of it for some of the guys and myself, because it got so intense. Because in my head, I was like, we're against all these other, British acts, and we're like, how are we going to be the people that? So I suppose I brought that professional element into something that requires standards, but not that.
Yeah, okay.
Because then you take the enjoyment out of it.
Is that leadership? Is it a different way to keep those standards? Do you look back at it now, kind of going, maybe it was more of an arm around than a boot up the arse to those, like, at that time? Because you're right, like 2000, wasn't it, with the Blizzard? That was so competitive, man.
Oh yeah, and you had all the big indie scenes. I remember we were brought over to the UK, and it's just best. Like, we were rebelling against the skinny jean top man thing. Like, we're like, oh, no. Like, we were 5 absolute boggers, right? Not wearing any of that. We were super dry hoodies. And then the label brought us over, and we had to do a styling thing. And I'm like, lads, we're wearing this stuff. Like, we have to wear this stuff. Or we won't do well here.
You are in a string vest going, get into it.
You want to see the photograph? I had to wear the jeans for 3 years because I couldn't get out of them. And I was still rugby size. Like, I was still 18 stone. Yeah. And they were putting me in, like, people said, obviously, it looked a bit like it was crazy. But I remember looking, I was going, this isn't us. Like, why are we doing this ourselves? But you do that because you feel you have to. And then I was the one kind of go, we got to do this, and we got to do what the label say. Like, we were still pretty young. But I think what professional rugby, probably some of the things that I didn't enjoy about professional rugby, I didn't, like, when you were injured, which unfortunately for me was a lot.
Yeah.
There was an utter sense of, you are a taxi man with no car. Why are you here? They put you into a room with maybe on your own.
Yeah.
You weren't kept part of the squad. And I think there's been huge progress in rugby when it comes to the psychological welfare of the players. Absolutely. Yeah. But I do not think it's where it needs to be. I still think there's elements of it that, and at the end of the day, it's your job, but it is an intensely difficult job. Mm-hmm. And I know people will go, I'd love to be this.
Of course.
Like, it is a brutally difficult job, and it's hard on the body, it's hard on the head. And I do wonder how progressed we've come in the absolute. I think it's gone in a different world to when I was playing, but I think there's still room for potential improvement, especially in the squads that are training together all the time.
Yeah.
The Leinsters and the Munsters. Ireland's not as much because they see each other 6 times a year maybe.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the squads, and they probably do have systems, far better systems, but I don't know what they are. And I talk to a lot of the rugby players, and what we have now is an incredibly emotionally intelligent kind of like group of players who who are talking about this. So we saw Andrew Porter talking about it on the Late Late Show, that type of stuff. And he's been running that. Caelan Doris is incredibly, he's a real leader, a real captain, but he's also unbelievably emotionally intelligent. Like he knows, he understands that world. So I'm really delighted to see that now coming into these kind of leadership players that are leading the way, and hopefully help the academy players coming up.
That's what we need though, Bressie, isn't it? We need the voice of the players to be kind of heard a little bit. Like, it's funny you mention it, but I remember exactly like that. If there was injured players or players not selected, they trained at a difficult time, might be 6 a.m, and then 6 p.m. It was like, keep them away. You know what I mean? It's seen as a negative around the squad. And I remember Doug Howlett coming over and getting injured, and him going, man, I want to be helpful here, but you're keeping me so far away. I can't even.
And it goes against everything we know. Like you need a community to get fit again. You need to be around fitness. You need to see people. I mean, there were times where I was so injured, and it was kind of, my injuries weren't like I was doing well and then boom, oh look, you got it. My injuries were just rolling into each other, and like my body wasn't working. It just wasn't functioning. I was sent to all these movement specialists and all these running specialists, and they're like, we can't figure out what's wrong with this guy. Like, that was the interesting thing. What was wrong with me was it was my head, like, and it was my whole body was like so tense all the time, and I couldn't make it work. So I think that was the only regret I have, and I don't have any regrets. Like in rugby, I genuinely don't. The only regret is I never got to show what I was capable of, and that does jar me a little bit, because I remember being in Leinster going, oh my God, I know what I can do, and I can't do it, and my body won't let me do it, and these lads probably think I'm a waste of time in here, and I should have been, like, they should have gave the contract, because I was already a youth player, so I already had that chip on my shoulder. So I was like thinking all that, and you know, maybe it was the right thing, but I still feel like I would have liked to got a pop.
Yeah, definitely. I know us in it, so as really unlucky, and it happens an awful lot. Like, people have no scale for how injuries can not only take from you progressing, but also challenge you mentally. Like, I
think that's the worst part. Because you're, as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, your body's not meant to do that to you. No. You know what I mean? So that was the thing. I was like, oh, hold on, this is when we're meant to be in our prime. But I do think, like, to be fair, and I say this a lot, I was very well treated by the IRFU when I retired. Like, it wasn't like I had time left in my contract, and they were like, listen, we really feel for you. And, you know, so there was a lot of empathy there. And at the end of the day, like you said this before, I've heard you say, they're a business.
Yeah.
They can't be giving contracts to lads who can't run. Like, they just can't. So I was like, brilliant, I'll go back and play football. And then I got injured again. It's brilliant.
But it has been brilliant how you've brought a voice for so many. And you mentioned the likes of Caelan Doris there and Andrew Porter. And everything you hear about Andy Farrell, you know what I mean? I listening to an awful lot of the players coming away from that Lions tour. And they say what he has that's different is he can coach to feel.
Yeah.
Which, imagine mentioning that 20 years ago, you'd be like, what, the coaches to feel? You know what I mean? Like, how do you...
What a great line. And I think, like, same thing, because I'd be chatting to him about Andy and the difference between the different coaches over the years. And to be fair, I interviewed Matt Williams, who was my coach at Leinster at the time. And I asked him, what did you think was wrong with me? Just out of interest, I was interviewing him on the podcast. He was really honest. He goes, we thought you had a drink problem. And I remember going, oh, like, and that's what you saw. Like, that's what you were seeing when I was injured and not able to show face at all. And he said, that's honestly, and he goes, I promise you one thing, I'll never miss another one. And I was like, that's enough for me, Matt.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. But with Andy, the thing about Andy, I think where you start seeing great coaches is when they have to go away for 2 months and you have to bring a team together for 2 months. Because if there's any frailties in the team, if there's any passive aggression or confrontational issues there, it is finished. It's over. A team will break. And especially over that 2-month intense period where you would have watched the Lions. And people might argue that didn't happen with Ireland for the World Cup. But there's a myriad of reasons why that could be the way. But when you ask the players, are they comfortable around Andy? They say they are. And he listens to them and he talks to them. But I also think that works both ways. We have a group of players now who know how to engage that with someone like Andy and know how to talk to him. And like Andrew, going Caelan, there's other players there as well that have just been brilliant at versing the parts of the game that people don't see. And the thing that we have to be careful here, and I've seen this a bit, is because this is such an exciting sport for Ireland and we've done so well and people are so proud of the team, they don't want to talk about the sides of the game that can be difficult.
Yeah.
But we have to. Like, you can't avoid that stuff. So, yeah, I think there's players there and there's Andy. And I think he's set the bar now for coaching. And, you know, what's going to happen is they might go on a bit of a losing streak and be like, oh, we got to get, you know, that's the horrible, vicious circle of coaching. That's why we wouldn't get into it, I say.
Yeah, exactly. It's keep us well away from it.
Drop like third period French every year.
But you have been one of the great voices for mental health. And when you hear stuff like that, and just come back to rugby again because it's the common ground, but like when you hear the likes of Andy Farrell saying he wants players to show their vulnerabilities, leave us, put it all out there, show us your vulnerabilities, show what you're scared of, show the moments, and then he leads by showing it himself. You're like, it's a far cry, isn't it, from where show no weakness, get up when you're hurt, you know what I mean? Never.
Well, I think we have to reframe the word vulnerability. Like, vulnerability is just being a human being. Like, we all go through things that we don't know how to deal with. Yeah. Like, anyone who's listening to this who's gone through grief, like, there's no book that I've ever read that has made me make sense of it. It's just a torturous pain that you have to go through. So I think when someone says vulnerability, and I'm always wary of using a word like weakness around it, because it isn't. And I think it's just a very definition of humanity. We're all vulnerable. I think I've heard, I can't remember which player said you can be powerful and vulnerable at the same time. That's the language that young men should hear. Like, this is the truth. This is what teams like Ireland and the teams they love and look up to. This is how they role model their squads on this side of things. So, for example, I worked with a player, a squad, and just mindfulness stuff, and I knew the fullback's mother was dying, and it was really like he wasn't dealing with it, but the coach didn't know that, and he wasn't really playing well or showing up properly in training. And I said to the coach, that's really the first thing you should know. Yeah, because I can guarantee you that player wants to turn up and he wants to play and he's capable, but he's not. I wouldn't be able to turn up. So there's just stuff like that. I think that Andy has probably changed, and I think other coaches are trying to change it, because that's what great coaching does. It influences other coaches and how they approach the game, especially Gaelic football. I worry about Gaelic footballers and hurlers. I think their world is intense. I think there is, you know, some of the stuff that they have to deal with is really difficult, on top of having to work and get up and all of that other stuff. So that's when you see a really world-class coach becoming everything, because they're training intensely 5 days a week without getting paid. So you got to keep it together. And I think the brilliant coaches do that.
I think that's an incredible point. When you look at our amateurs, that gives so much. But I've always noticed that emotional buy-in is the currency there. So like, they're nearly even using their love for where they're from, for their family, for their community, to drive the whole thing. But it's tribal.
It is tribal. I've been there. I remember years ago, I was in scholarship, rugby scholarship, and Westmeath were in the All-Ireland. We had won the All-Ireland the year before under 21s, and we were in the All-Ireland semi-final. And I remember being told that I have to play, and I was told I'd lose my scholarship, like, if I played Gaelic football. I was like, so I was caught in this horrible world of, and this tribal thing where people in Mullingar were like, you have to play. You play. Like, and I was like, I don't care what the crack is. And I remember going, I couldn't sleep for weeks leading up to that. And then I played the game. It was down in Laois, and I said, actually, won't find out.
They won't find out.
It was on primetime television.
The front of the paper.
Big white clubs. They came on, and I was called in, and they nearly got rid of my scar. But I remember the tribalness of Westmeath and what it meant to me, and I would have done anything for Westmeath. I genuinely would have. And I think when you something like Kerry or Donegal, and you get that has a record of winning. I go down to Kerry. Like, the other thing about Kerry, who won the All-Ireland, like, Kerry's like a country in itself. It takes like 3 hours to get from one end of it to the next.
The kingdom.
You know what I mean? It's huge. So these lads travelling 4 days a week doing this stuff, up and down from Dingle up to feckin' Killarney, like, and further up to Tralee. Like, it's a huge commitment. I have so much respect for it. And I think, yes, you're going to have teams that you love, that you're tribal about, that lose, but it doesn't give you a right to rip them personally limb from limb in the midst of it, because they've given a lot, and nobody wants to lose.
No, but that's the point, Bressie, isn't it? That emotional buy-in should nearly be offset with upskilling the people around them to support them a little bit better, because it's nearly too much. It's too much in a professional environment. Imagine it at an amateur one.
That when you move past almost dysregulation emotionally, where you would literally run through a wall.
Yeah.
And I think if I were coaching a major team, like one of the, when you look at Dublin or Kerry, I know they have psychologists, but the 90% of football squads in Ireland they're not going to use their budgets probably for something like that. It'll probably be used rightly for certain conditioning and stuff like that, and diet and all, which is preferably performance-based stuff. But I would argue that unless you're dealing with the performance, the psychology of the individual and the group, which is really important, which is what good psychologists will do, you can feed anyone what they want. Their body will turn on them like it did in me.
It's amazing you said. I remember reading something from Arsene Wenger when Arsenal were flying, and him saying the point of difference is no longer in strength and conditioning and physically getting our athletes ready. They're ready. It's the mental game and looking after them at that side.
I think we talk a good game around it. I think there's a lot of. I think there's also a belief that there is no way of developing the mental game. That it's like it's a static thing. It's just like we are what we are. Our brains are. I think our personality types are not. I wouldn't say set in stone, but they can be fairly rigid.
Yeah.
But your mental skills, like these are mental skills. These are the things that we teach kids at our charity in schools. These are programs that work. Mental visualization, mental imagery, cues. Like we see breath work as a great way to regulate the central nervous system. These are things that have efficacy, and we study these things. I just don't think they're applied because there isn't a visual to them. And I think the idea of measuring them can be challenging. And at least sport, measurement's everything. That's how you get your money.
Yeah.
Like you got to be able to go, you lost this or you gained this. And I think in mental skills, it's a little harder to put that metric on it. But any squad that's not heavily engaging in mental skills now, they're really missing out. And there's some brilliant coaches out there on it.
Yeah, and we kind of lead the way in Ireland yet again, which you just listen to the ones that have pushed away, and they seem to have the best support network off the pitch to look after players mentally.
But it's not. I think the other thing with sports is that we need to separate performance and psychology and the individual. And like the individual also has a life. They have parts of their life that they have relationships. They have children. Some of them, and people say you can't separate them. They're naturally separated. Like your performance is. But I do think I'm more interested in that individual. Like I like that's how I talk to an individual. Like I always say I don't care who you are, I care how you are. Like what's going on there. Like, and it explains a lot, personality types, and that's why great psychologists who work with players like this, they're so important to them because they're not asking them how did they kick their ball, what are they thinking. Some sports psychologists, but a lot of the people I see working with these individuals are just trying to see how they are. Like, how are you getting on? How's your relationship? How's your children doing? There's stuff you don't. There's players we would have played with would have been deeply anxious before games. Like I never got anxious.
Yeah.
Because the problem with me is if you give me time to think, I get anxious. You start thinking on a rugby pitch, you're going to get your arse handed to you. Like you're sitting there. It's introspective reflection.
Yeah, exactly.
No, so that's why I love rugby.
Yeah.
I couldn't think.
Yeah. It's amazing you say it though. I just look at the people that have come in. Again, I'm going back to Doug Howlett. But I remember he was injured and he started doing visualization. And all of us thought it was a load of shite. None of us really had much time for it. But I remember he used to pull a chair and sit down on the pitch in Thomond Park, and he'd sit there for about 10, 15 minutes. He came back from his injury. He scored the most amazing try I've ever seen in Thomond.
I remember it, yeah.
And I remember I chatted to him afterwards, and he's there, I've scored that try over 2,000 times in my head.
And people don't get this. This is mental imagery. Like there's streams of evidence and research that are done in this type of thing, especially for injured players who actually would close. I did it a lot. I was mad into endurance sports and doing all the Ironman and ultramarathon stuff, and I got an injury. And I remember going, how am I going to deal with this injury? And it was actually 3 months before an Ironman, and I had trained for 12 months for this, and I was like, and everyone was like, you're not. I badly went over like Achilles, and I was like, yeah, I'm not. I might be able to cycle. I'm not going to be able to run. And so I visualized myself running every single day. I swear to God, I visualized myself training, my training routes. I'd close my eyes and I'd go through the whole thing, and I'd visualize every step. I'd time it, and I was back running in 4 weeks, and I got an hour off my time in the Ironman, having not trained for 3 months before it.
Wow.
So mental imagery is powerful. It's a skill, and I think you can teach it. And I think the younger we teach it, the more profound it can become for people.
when you look at communities, work placements, we chat about mental health, but putting things like that in place, Bressie, how do we do that? How easy accessible is it to do things like that? What should we be looking at to kind of go, we're deficient here, be it in the team environment or on the site? How can we get better at the kind of mental health side of stuff with putting structures in place there?
Like it starts above everything with early prevention. Like that's your starting point.
Yeah.
So my charity, Lust for Life, that was our focus. Like how do we get into schools and create evidence-based free programs? That's the focus of my PhD research, is how do we actually help children early, teach them the skills to be better guardians of their own minds. Like 3, 4, 5, like our programs will go to Leaving Cert, and it'll be from first class to Leaving Cert. And then you create these coherent programs, whether they're athletes or musicians or they want to work in a building site or tradespeople, they have these skills. And if we don't do it early, if we're still theorizing on the problem, like I'm seeing a lot, we're going, oh, children are struggling. They've just gone through a global pandemic. Of course they are struggling.
Yeah.
All they have seen is threat for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Like, can we not just accept that this is something we got to move on now? So that's what we do. We're in about 50% of Irish primary schools. So that, to me, when people ask me, whether it's a site, whether it's a team, when you're approaching it and there's a culture within that team or site or organisation that's allowing you to do it early,
amazing,
we can deal with a lot of this.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff, if we don't let people repress it or internalize it, that we can be dealt with. There's stuff that will need intervention. There will always be that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can take the pressure off the fact that we've streams of people struggling right now, of course they are. It's been a brutal 10 years. And I would argue being a little anxious in the midst of it all is pretty healthy. There's a Krishnamurti quote going, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. You know, if you're perfectly well adjusted, seeing what we're seeing over the last 10 years, I'd be more worried about you. And this is the thing with early prevention, and this is why I think it's so crucial. But I also think Ireland can be world leaders at this. And we've a population of 5 million. We're wealthy. We're relatively politically stable, regardless of your politics.
Yeah,
we're good people. We're good at change. Why not us? Why can't we set the bar to show people this is how we approach this? And when I look at teams or squads, and we have those meetings that we would have had and sat in and wrote out our value systems and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's where you have the early prevention chat. And one thing about mental health that's important to point out here, like I have looked at 200 years of mental health intervention. That is what I'm researching. I'm looking at all the different ways we've looked at it, how we've treated it, how we have not treated it. And there's a lot that we don't know. And that's the truth of it. There's a lot we don't really know about the human mind. But there's a lot that we do. And one of the most effective supports we can develop are good communities and peer-to-peer support. And everybody listening to this has the capacity to do that. So good community is really important to good mental health outcomes. But more important, peer-to-peer social support. So you can talk about sites or you can talk about teams. When I was going home to my family, completely broken, as much as they tried, they couldn't truly understand the environment that I was in as a professional athlete. You know, only people in that environment can truly understand it. That's where peer support's powerful, because you're turning to someone who's a peer of yours, who knows how to address, like, I'm getting injured, I'm sick of being put in the room. Oh God, I know what that feels like. Yeah, that's hugely supportive. But if you're on a building site and you're working, you know, throughout winter, which is, I worked in building sites in winter. It's a tough gig, and you know, you're coming in and it's dark and you're leaving and it's dark and your head's a bit spacey and you're not sure which way is up. You're going through a relationship issue or whatever it could be carrying. And the guy beside you is having a cup of tea with you and going, I've been there. That's huge. Yeah, that's that peer support. You're not there to fix people. I'll use the building analogy, but I always say we're there to create emotional scaffolding for people, just to hold them up if they need to be held up. And that's good community. That's good peer support. So if there's all this stuff we don't know really, truly about the human mind, and there's stuff that we do, we should really focus on the stuff that we do know, which is create strong, supportive peer support communities. And then the other stuff, I hope, will start making more sense.
It's amazing. It really is. Like when you say that, what does that look to someone on the site? It's just being there for someone, truly listening, truly giving a shit.
Yeah, we see the one thing we know as well, if you show up, like everyone thinks that we assign all meaning to the words that we say, but humans are unbelievable. They look at body language, they look at tone of voice. You know if a coach is bullshitting you, know it. You know it. Even if they're saying these lovely words, Donncha, you're playing well.
You're playing well, but we're like, going with Miko.
And they're showing. So if you're going to do it, show up properly and say it authentically. And the other thing is, people ask me this, like, you're not there to fix people. It's just to go, listen, I've been there. It's a non-judgment thing you're trying to create for people, everybody, and you know, whether it's a site or whatever. And it could be a big site. It could be 1,000 people. Like, it could be massive sites. There's a site I saw there. I was building a school. I couldn't believe how many people were on it. Different tradespeople, different backgrounds, just all going around their business. And I think creating those conversations, because you can guarantee in that big site, there's a couple of lads going through some really difficult stuff right now. I'm not sure how to deal with it. And then there's other elements. Some people do need psychological support and intervention and professional support, and they need it. And if it's a big site like that, it should be in place. There should be, and there probably are mechanisms. I don't fully know, but there should be mechanisms in place. There's like in a lot of businesses, there's things called employee assistance programs. So these are really helpful for people, because I always say to people, as soon as it starts getting, as soon as you start dealing with it and it feels a little bit, you're not sure what you're doing or which way is up, deal with it straight away. That's early prevention as well.
Of course.
But that's cultural. So we gotta push for, I think, largely when it comes to health in Ireland, we wait for people to get to point of crisis before we intervene.
Yeah.
And that's really expensive humanly and economically. And I think our entire health system, our entire government, and everybody who runs anything should be focusing far more on early preventative models than waiting for people to become sick or overwhelmed or highly distressed. That won't solve everything. To be clear here, it just won't. But it will make a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
And you will see then this generation that we're teaching with the Lust for Life programs, they're going to be voters in 15, 20 years' time. These are children, and they're going to have the skills to deal with life. And that's the difference. They weren't the skills we were taught.
Yeah.
They weren't taught in school. And that's where our focus is. That's where my academic focus is as well.
It's amazing your drive for that, man. You light up. When I look at everything you've done, the rugby, the music, the podcasting, the books, but now taking on a PhD, man. You know what I mean? Like, one, where do you get the fucking time? But also, it is a drive for you, isn't it? To improve yourself, to get better, to become an authority on that area so that you can help more.
Well, you see, I'm very focused on the system. So I look at the system, and I say the system, the education, the health systems, and I look at this country that, has its problems, but then in some places like we have an unbelievable education system. We have the best teachers in the world. That's why all these, they're not all just here because of our tax. We're incredible.
Yeah.
I'm just back from the States where I was doing research, and I was talking about the big corporates here, and they're all going to leave. It was, why? Look at who they have. It's this unbelievably educated workforce, and they keep coming out. It's so they're like, no, that's a huge pull. So the reason I'm passionate about it is I look back at my own schooling. There's nothing that I ended up dealing with that probably couldn't have been coped with pretty easily.
Okay.
And I moved to the Middle East when I was 13. That was a big catalyst for me where, I was kind of profoundly dysfunctional anxiety when I came home, panic attacks. I didn't know what they were. But these are all things that could have been dealt with. And there was 15 years, including a professional rugby career in the middle of all of that, where I didn't deal with it.
Yeah, okay.
And it was car crash. Yeah. It was utter dysfunction, relationships, everything. So my drive is I'm almost appealing to the child in myself when I do this stuff, kind of going like, if this was done for you, would it have, made a difference? And then I look at this, I adore Ireland. I love it. Like, I think we're very lucky to live here. I really do. I sometimes think, you talked about back to the dressing room and Michael O'Leary walking in. I don't think we back ourselves sometimes. Like, people, why can't we set the case study? Because there's nowhere really in the world that has got this right.
Yeah.
Because I still think this conversation's relatively new, and in politics, it takes 20 years to change anything. So we have a real chance to make a decision. Do we want to set the bar here? And I think the way we set the bar is we focus with young people. We develop out really strong programs. And that's what we've done, and that's what the PhD is looking at. A good way to look at it is, if we were to start again knowing what we know, what will we do?
Yeah.
That's the best way to approach what I'm doing. And I look back at 200 years of mental health intervention. And what people don't realise, in 1950, Ireland had the highest level of people in psychiatric hospitals in the world. We loved putting people into institutions because we didn't want to deal with whatever it is they were dealing with. So we're like, oh, Jesus, Mary's taken to the bed, into the institution. And it was very easy to commit people. So we just put them in. And because Ireland was, when you look at our history, we've had a fairly rough run of it. So a lot of people were probably just distressed. Famines, civil wars, war for independence, poverty. So a lot of people probably didn't cope. And once again, rightly, they didn't cope. It was pretty hard. So what did we do with them? Put them into institutions. Rather than to chat with them, create peer supports, good communities. That's the power of it.
Yeah.
And if there's anything Ireland's good at, it's good community. So I think that is I'm excited by it, because I think we could do it. But it's important to point out here, Donncha, we're starting from a pretty low bar.
Okay.
It's not great right now. So I think that's another reason I do this, is because I look at it and go, we have a lot to do, especially with children. We've got to support them with their health early. And we look at some of the other health issues we've seen with children and the approaches that we've taken that have broken families. We can't do that. These are families. And until it visits your door, you have no reality of what you have to deal with.
Of course. Just for you personally, though, there'll be people listening on sites or wherever, just that constant evolving, going back to study again there, Bressie. I'm sure it's fucking daunting, man. You know what I mean?
It is, yeah.
You like rolling up your sleeves. Obviously, you like doing it, but the task, you know what I mean? Someone that will always want to upskill.
I'm not a natural academic, you see. That's the other thing. And it's one thing. I did my master's a couple of years ago, and I kind of got the bug for it, because education was always shoved down my throat. I was called stupid most days of my life in school. Like, I didn't like school. I didn't function in school. I didn't like being in a classroom. I didn't like what I was learning. I liked some of it. Like, I loved English and I loved music. But I was learning things I had absolutely zero interest in. And I understand you have to, like, it's part of it. But, that was perceived as stupidity. Because I have to be honest, I was probably an absolute pain in the hole as well.
Okay,
I'm not blaming just me. I was an absolute nightmare. But education on your own terms is real something I don't take for granted. So going back to do a PhD I'll be straight up, it's the biggest commitment I've ever taken on.
Okay.
Because it's a little harder, I think, for me. I'm not naturally that way inclined, so I have to rethink how I look at things. And the thing about a PhD, it's not an opinion. So all these opinions I have that I'm talking to you about are irrelevant.
Yeah, okay.
This is objective. You have to come at it like this didn't exist, and now it exists as a piece of work or research. So I had to retrain that and let the opinions go a little bit and the biases go. But you talk about discipline. I tell you what, it is one where you gotta have discipline.
What would you say to someone listening, just for that constant growth? You know what I mean? They're probably thinking they're working in their trade, but there's an opportunity to expand, get better, push themselves on.
Don't get sucked in by the absolute foghorns of nonsense of the hustle culture that we've created, where you have a lad on TikTok saying he does 8 days work in 7 days, and he gets up at 4 a.m. and goes to the gym twice before 5 a.m. and injects green stuff into his testicles. And if you're not doing it, you're not hustling hard enough. It's nonsense. It is a nonsense, and it's this individualistic kind of every man and every woman for themselves agenda. It's like we talk to each other like we're LinkedIn articles.
Yeah.
Optimal living. I always say this to people, like, humans aren't designed to be optimal all the time. We're designed to be optimal for periods of time, short periods of time. Look at the Olympics. Daniel Wiffen, boom, won the Olympics, and then went in the beer for 2 months in Thailand. You win a Six Nations, and then there's a release. There's a time off, and you built to that. And you were like, we need to be at our prime for that period of time, and then we crash a little bit, and then we get back on, and then we've pre-season. That's how we're designed.
Yeah.
But what we're creating to most normal people like me and you now is that we got to be like that all the time. And it's a nonsense.
Yeah.
So people listen to this who want to succeed. The one thing I will tell you is the most successful people that I've spoken with over the years, worked with in academia, in sport, in music, and in business, know how to rest.
Yeah.
They know how to rest. And I mean real rest. Not an 8-hour hike. Sit in your hole. Rest. Be around people you love. Rest. Don't read a book to better yourself. Rest. Sometimes we don't need to keep up. And what that does is when the time comes where you gotta put the hours in, and you gotta do the pre-season, which was horrible. I still have nightmares about pre-season. You're ready for it because you've rested, and I'm not just talking physically, you're mentally ready for it, because you're not going, oh my God, here we go again.
Yeah.
You've had a month or 2 months off and you're ready to go. And that, ultimately, the irony of that is that's what I blame my injury on. I didn't get that. I came from the Under-21s World Cup straight into Leinster season. I didn't get an hour off. And my body gave up on me, and my head gave up on me, because I couldn't keep going. So that's what I say to people who want to succeed: rest, and don't buy into this stuff on TikTok. It's hilarious. Have you ever seen that meme of your man going, "I'm not crazy for thinking you can do, like, there's only 24 hours in the day. You're crazy for thinking that." I was like, this guy is basically manipulating time and space, and he's a quantum physician now as well. And you're like, well, hold on, it's like, and it's just, and I see young men buying into it as well. Like, I love people who push and set goals and have purpose. It's really important. It gives you a North Star. But if that's all you do, That's all you make your life about. Take it from somebody who always thought his happiness lay in achievement. It doesn't. It lies in connection. And there's something in that. And I think people need to differentiate the difference between being ambitious and being a human being. And you can do both. You can hold them both. And that's what I would say. People building a business. And building a business is hard work. I worked on sites every year for 6 years. I worked in demolition. I was very bad. Before you get into the DIY stuff, I was unbelievable at breaking stuff. I'm awful at building stuff. And I was given a job, literally as demolition. And I remember, this is the one, I was working in Maynooth when we were doing up Maynooth, and I had the Kango hammers, and I'd come home from work and I'd be trying to eat my dinner, but my hands wouldn't work. I'd been holding this thing for 8 hours. And my mum's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, and I'm then licking the plate because my hands were, and then off to Gaelic training. Yeah. But then I had forearms on me like Popeye.
Exactly it.
So that was my background in DIY, and then I kind of learned how to build things a little bit. So I got back into it. I ended up, when I gave up rugby, I ended up a floor layer for 3 months. Yeah, our manager was a floor layer. The Blizzards manager, Moff.
No way.
Was a floor layer.
I thought you were Gaelic football manager.
No, and so he goes, "I need a job, Moff." And so he gave me a job flooring and fired me. So like when your own manager fires you realise how terrible you are at a floor layer. And I'm laying a floor tomorrow.
Yeah, no way.
In my house, yeah. So,
wow.
So what I tend to do is I lay it myself. I believe I can do it. And then about 2 weeks later, I called out the experts to do it.
Yeah, amazing. Actually, funny we say it because we see an awful lot of the projects you take on. Where did the interest come from? Obviously, you've always worked on sites, and of course, there's the kind of family interested. But is there part of it for you that you're like, yeah, this gets me out of my head for a little bit?
I think it's really challenging. I think I always thought I couldn't do it. And then COVID came, and when I got a house, the house wasn't in good shape. And I like at the time you couldn't really get tradespeople because they were so busy. And I was like, maybe I can try doing some of this myself, which was to a point. But then one of my best mates, Dav, he's
there you are, sending a bath full, just about to hook up the electrics.
The tiling one was I tried to tile.
Tiling.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was so worried. Like, do you know the way usually the DIY will give you a few days of going, that worked. Like the tiling straight away told me this isn't working, because I came up after having coffee and the tiles were like sinking like this. But one of my best mates, Dav, he's from Westport up there, and he comes down and he's just gifted. He can build anything. I mean anything. He builds guitars. He's a world-class guitar builder. Wow. He's a carpenter by background. He works for the Armed Response Unit. So he's this mad background. And he just comes, I was like, "Dav, could we do that?" And he was like, "Yeah." And it's that mentality. And I'm like, well, maybe I can. And then he's really lovely to me because he knows like I'm not particularly skilled, but he'd give me the nail gun or something going, "You're doing a great job there." And I'm like, "Thanks, Dad."
You were there with a rubber hammer. Keep at it.
But then I worked in Mullingar Hardware as well years ago. I went to the hardware store, and the lads would come in and they'd be asking you for stuff, and you'd be like, and he just, and it was always like, "Why is he even here?" Because I'd have to turn to the other lads. "Jerry, come here. Someone lads wants to talk to you."
You didn't give it that stone there on the left.
Just like I knew about music and rugby, and that was it. But I have actually so much respect for it, and I learned actually YouTube. I found really, really useful for just certain things. Like I'm going to take a small thing on today, and I'm going to do this. But there's other things like there's things like painting. Painting, I find like. That's a lot more nuanced than people like. There's 100%. A lot in it, like and there's a lot of stuff you got to do and think of and prep for, and if you don't do it, it falls apart. And same thing, like I Keith, my painter, and like I tried to do it myself. It's like the reason people use people like us is because we think of all this.
He actually loves when he sees you walking over with a tin of paint. He's there, "Shut in 2 weeks, Bressie."
No, but even
I'm around. I'll tidy that up.
He literally doesn't even say that to me. He just puts it in his diary. And he knows I buy it.
What's been your favourite project that you've done?
One of the things we did, like there was a little kind of crappy decking out the back where I was, and I was like, I mean, it was unsavable. It was in bits, and I kind of wanted to build a little summer home there, like just in the space, so it's indoors, kind of outdoor thing. And I got like this beautiful cedar wood, and I said to Dav, "Could we do it? Like, do you think we could pull this off?" And he was like, "Yeah." And it was just that was my first big job that I did, because it was like, I mean, it was hard enough. Like we had to build the wall, and we had to it was all wood, and we had to put a roof on it and all that kind of stuff, and then get the door. And then just to watch it. But I did the whole house. Like I took up all the floors I went in there on my own for 2 weeks. And I went back to my demolition days. I swear to God, I came out. There was a skip out the front, and that was full in the first day. I threw everything out, and then I said, right, I'm going to floor this with Dav, and I just loved that experience of flooring. I just thought because now the house is starting to look like a house.
Yeah, I get you.
And then you paint, and now you can start seeing where furniture could go. But yeah, my dad actually, when I was getting the house, he was like, oh, Jesus, like who's going to do all this? You don't do any of this. I don't do it in your house, Dad, because you do it.
Yeah.
I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, like I'm going to watch TV and sit my arse here. So Dad thought I had no DIY because I didn't even cut the grass.
No, he's looking at you.
I'm not great at it, but I do enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge of it.
What's the point where you kick back and go, that's no longer DIY, call in the trades? You know what I mean? What's too big for you?
Most of it. Yeah, absolutely.
It's good and honest.
Yeah, honestly. I definitely think there's different things. There's things you just don't do.
Yeah.
Like you don't do electrics.
Yeah.
And you don't do plumbing. And you don't do tiling. And you don't do painting and decorating. I don't know what I do. I'm quite good lad to have around though.
Yeah, okay.
If you're doing it, I love the chats.
Dragging.
I make
Come on, for
I have
sticking
a really
on the
good
kettle.
coffee maker. I have a coffee machine, a good fancy one that all the rugby players seem to have. I got it. So the builders come in and they get cappuccinos and they get all that, and they love the chats and they love my dog. But no, I do. I always look and ask them questions. But even Keith out there painting now, and I'm like, right, he's painting today. So I'll go out with him.
Yeah.
And he's going to leave me all the jobs to do that. He knows I won't make an ass with him. So.
Okay. Yeah. Do you find working with your hands therapeutic? Do you find it good just mentally?
It's very mindful. Like I love the idea of I'm actually not naturally very good at building or making things.
Okay.
I don't have, even like, all joking aside, even things like flat packs. I'm like, I don't know what it is about my brain, but it doesn't see what other people see when I open it.
I'm with you.
And I do this thing that big people do. You just keep pushing things. And then
I will persuade
they're
this in.
broken. And they're like, and like if you look at some of my furniture, the screws are kind of bent in like nails into them because I just push them. And that's the beauty of being a big lad. You can make things work your way, even wood bends. So yeah, no, I do like, I built a few guitars as well with Dav, and that was a beautiful experience because it's a plank of wood and then it's a guitar.
Yeah.
That's a lovely experience.
What are you most proud of, Bressie, when you look at everything you've done between the music, the Lust for Life stuff, the being so creative, rugby? What do you stand back and stick the chest out a little bit and kind of going, yeah, I'm glad I did that well?
I think getting help when I got help and how I approached that and how completely I knew I needed help, but how I approached that at a time when people weren't really doing or approaching. People talk about mental health conversation. The guy who gave me the real kind of motivation and belief to go, I can get help, with Conor Cusack. It was Conor Cusack in a conversation on radio. I was driving home one day and I was on the N4 just outside Enfield, and I had to pull in the car. I think he was on News Talk. I can't remember. It was one of the sports.
You were listening to him?
He was just talking he'd been interviewed and he was talking about himself, and I was like, and it was me. It was just literally me.
Wow.
What he was saying, I was like, and he, obviously he was a high, huge GAA, like people. So I was like, this guy is saying what is going on in my head. And I remember that day, I'm kind of proud that I was like, right, I'm gonna deal with my own stuff here first before I start looking at systems and what we can do. I got to deal with this stuff, and sometimes we do a lot in our life to avoid dealing with the stuff we don't want to deal with. So the thing I'm most proud of is that I made the decision to do that and understand that, like, same thing, connection's really important, relationships, family. This isn't rocket science. Like, I think we've created a modern culture that has swindled us out of time with those people. That's your biggest thing. And if you can spend as much time all the time, it's a privilege you shouldn't take for granted, because it comes a point where you don't have a choice anymore. So I think, to me, people ask me what mindfulness is. It's that. It's just look those people in the eye, and culture will tell you there's something better in your phone, and there's something better here, and there's something better to do. And yes, social media is hilarious sometimes, but it robs you of that presence with the people you love. And I think COVID, if anything, really made me aware of that. And, I spent the entire COVID with my mum and dad. I cocooned them because my dad was ex-military. He was like, I'll be grand. I was like, no. Washing papers. And so that was a real privilege to spend that time with him. So anyone listening to this, looking for any advice, that's what I would do. Even, you know, if you have a passive aggressive sister who annoys you at Christmas, it's worth it. They're the people that matter. Honestly, that's it. There's nothing more. That's all I know about all of this stuff. That doesn't mean it's easy. And, you know, good relationships take time and work, and they're hard, but they're worth it. And I think in a world that feels so out of control right now and so overwhelming for people, I say to people, go back into your communities, go back into your families and presents and give them your presents. And I think that helps a lot. So I feel very lucky that I could do that, you know, and I know there's families that have, and relationships that aren't like that. So I'm aware of all of this, but that's what I'm most proud of, is that I reconnected with the people that I probably hurt a lot, and I reconnected with them, and I did the work, and that's like anything in sport. You know, I remember the one thing I was ever told standing on the starting line of anything, the only question you should be asking yourself at that point is, did you do the work?
Yeah.
And if you've done the work, no other questions come into it. And I think that's the probably best learning I ever got in sport.
Amazing. It's been a great chat, Bressie. I've loved it. Honestly, so proud of everything you've achieved, from back playing with you to music, podcasting, everything that you've done book-wise, you speaking up to look out for...
And we're fellow kids authors.
Yeah.
Could you imagine anyone looking at the two of us under 20s, but those lads are going to be kids authors? You're like,
well, mine's an autobiography. Yours is helpful.
Well, mine is an autobiography as well. It's slightly autobiographical, but that shows you that's the thing. We should never limit ourselves to
very true.
We should follow what we love. And after sport, especially someone like you who played for as long as you played at that level and won so much, it can go the other way. Like, you can go in, retirement can be difficult. So you've done unbelievable. And I think it's the approach, and rugby is kind of something we all love, and it's taught us a lot, but, you know, it's only rugby.
Yeah, it's true. It doesn't define you in one bit. You know what I mean? It's what you're saying there earlier on. It's that community, it's a family, it's what you're about. So
I'm going back to the building sites.
I'll labour for you. I hear you make a deadly coffee.
Yeah, I do.
Bressie, thank you so much for joining us on Under Construction. We wish you the very best in your PhD. I hope that goes well. No doubt, like everything you put your hand to, it'll be incredible.
We'll
but
see.
Just so you know, we're so incredibly proud of you, my man. Well done. Keep going, Bressie. You're a beauty.
Thanks. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of Under Construction, with thanks to Chadwicks. A massive thank you to you for listening. Also to our fantastic guests. If you'd like to subscribe or follow, we'd really appreciate it. Or you can hit the like button. See you next time.